good morning, and welcome. On behalf of the state of New Mexico, Governor Michelle Teresa and the New Mexico Board Authority, welcome to Santa Teresa. It is a privilege to host this important summit and to welcome New Mexico Deputy Secretary of Agriculture, Teresa, Texas Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller, our federal, state, county, and municipal partners, the Councils of Mexico and the United States, representatives of the Chihuahua Cattle Union, our colleagues from Ciudad Juarez and El Paso, and everyone who has joined us today. Thank you for being here. The New Mexico Board Authority was created to strengthen our border region through infrastructure, trade, economic development. And today's gathering is a reminder that protecting our economy also means protecting the industry that sustains it. This issue is also personal for me. I am a cattle rancher in the state of Chihuahua, and I'm a proud member of the Unión Ganadera. For many years, I have exported cattle to Santa Teresa port of entry and traded cattle across Nogales, Douglas, Columbus, Santa Teresa, and Presidio. I have seen firsthand how interconnected our livestock industries are and how much we rely on safe, healthy, and efficient cross-border systems. The New World Screwworm is not just an agricultural issue, it is a regional issue. It affects producers, trade, food security, economic well-being of communities on both sides of the border. One thing that has always been true about our region, our greatest challenges are best solved together. The pest does not recognize borders, and our response cannot either. That is why it is so encouraging to see leaders from New Mexico, Texas, the state of Chihuahua, Ciudad Juarez, El Paso, and our federal governments gathered around the same table today. And before we begin, I would like to ask each participant on this table to briefly introduce themselves, their organization, and the community or agency they represent. We can start with Mr. Manzanares.
Daniel Manzanares. I run the International Import-Export Livestock Facility here in Santa Teresa. It's an American agricultural cooperative with foreign ownership. It's owned by the Chihuahua Cattle Ranch.
Nelson Melito, the chairman of the Board of Commerce and Security Council, one of the sponsors of this event with the New Mexico Border Authority. Thank you for being here.
Hola, buenos días a todos. Mi nombre es Roberto Lucero, presidente municipal de Casa Grande. Un gusto estar con ustedes y en lo que podamos ayudar de nuestro municipio. Muchas gracias.
Cruz Pérez Cuellar, I was former mayor of Juárez.
Jorge Varela, chairman of the Supervisory Board of the Unión Ganadera, presidente del Consejo de Vigilancia de la Unión Ganadera.
Buenos días a todos, gracias por la invitación. Florencio Ramos, secretario de la Unión Ganadera Regional de Chihuahua, en representación de Álvaro Bustillos, que es presidente de la Unión Ganadera. Gracias.
Good morning, my name is Robin Bussa. I am the Acting Consul General at the U.S. Consul General in Ciudad Juarez.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for arranging this meeting. The Mayor of El Paso, Renard Johnson.
Buenos días a todas y a todos. Héctor Ortiz Orpinel, presidente municipal de Ciudad Juárez.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Commissioner Sid Miller with the Texas Department of Agriculture.
Good morning, everyone. Gerardo Fierro, Executive Director of the New Mexico Border Authority.
Good morning, everyone. Les Owen, I'm the Deputy Secretary of Agriculture in New Mexico, and Secretary Whitty sends his regards and his regrets that he wasn't able to make it today as well. But thank you for putting this together.
Tell him why, though. Tell him why.
New grandbaby, so.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. I'm Belinda Garland. I'm the Executive Director for the New Mexico Livestock Board. As you all know, we regulate movement of livestock into the state and out of the state. Thank you.
Muy buenos días, Mauricio Ibarra Ponce de León, Cónsul General de México en El Paso, Texas, y vemos toda la frontera sur de México.
Ricardo Samaniego, buenos días, Paso County Judge, and we definitely have the right people at the table.
That's good to see you.
Juan Acevedo, International Affairs, City of Juárez. Thank you very much. So be here.
Buenos días, soy Ivonne de la Olla de Sal, presidenta municipal de Chihuahua. Soy a la orden y muchas gracias.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. It's a blessing to have you all together. My name is Christiane Harvey.
I'm Linda County District Commissioner, or District 3 Linda County Commissioner, also Chair of the Linda County Commission. I'm a board member on New Mexico Border Authority. And I want to say, Sid, you make a striking appearance, young man.
Well, thank you. I think that's the first anyone's ever said to me. My face is flushed.
Morning, everybody. Philip Skinner, Mayor of Columbus.
Muy buenos días. Eloy Soto, presidente de la Asociación Ganadera Local de Valle de Allende y miembro del Consejo Directivo de la Unión Ganadera Regional de Chihuahua.
Thank you, everyone. Now, it is my pleasure to invite Deputy Secretary Les Owen and Commissioner Sigmiller to offer their opening remarks. Commissioner?
Well, thank y'all for coming out today. This is an important meeting. We get visit our friends across the border, friends on the border, tackle a very important test and try to arrest it. We have failed so far. In November 2024, we had the screwworm bottle up in southern Mexico. We failed to contain it. So since then, it's traveled 1,100 miles north and has entered the United States. We keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, which is the definition of insanity. We're not trying anything different, so that's what we're here today. We want to learn what else, what other options, what other tools are out there. We've got to do something different because obviously what we're doing is not working. It just continues to get worse. We've got over 2,000 active cases. That's the most cases we've had since we started this in 2024. We've been releasing 100 million flies a week since November 2024. That's 19 months worth of flies. That's 8 billion sterile flies. And today it's worse than it's ever been. So I'd say it's not working. We need to change our tactics. So that's what we're here today to talk about. What can we do different? How can we attack this different? They say even 100 million a week, 8 billion flies is not enough for 2,000 cases. We need, depending on who you talk to, 500 million a week to 700 million a week. So we need over 1 billion flies a month. And if you think about that, 1 billion flies to attack 2,000. That's astronomical odds. That alone will tell you they don't work very damn good, right? So the reason they don't work very well, and I support the flies. We need to build a facility. It's a 1-2 punch. We're going to talk about the second punch to get rid of it. But the reason the flies don't work, and they don't tell everybody, this group probably knows, some of the audience and media may not know. When they release 100 million sterile flies, they don't release any flies. They release the pupa. And they go through radiation. Well, when they hatch, half of them are sterile males, half of them are sterile females. And they just mate with each other. They don't have to go find a fertile female. That's why it takes just astronomical numbers for it to work. That's why we need 500 million a week to go after 2,000 fertile flies. The other problem is, since they sterilize them in the pupa with radiation, it stunts them. So they're only about 80% of their normal size. And the worst part about it, it's sad, but we probably all have had a relative or a friend or somebody that's had to go through chemo and radiation. Go through radiation, I'll just tell you, you're not very horny. I mean, you just don't feel good. You don't feel like going out and finding a girlfriend. I mean, you're just kind of knocked down. So that's another reason they just don't work that way. So you got radiation that just stunts them. You're releasing the females with the males, so they don't have to go very far to find a mate. So there's a whole number of reasons that the flies just don't work that way. Now, historically, we started using sterile flies in the 1930s, and we continued to use only that up until the 1960s. And we never did eradicate them. We finally ran and got enough flies to run them out of Texas and Mexico, but obviously we didn't eradicate them, they're back. We didn't get rid of them, we just shoved them down in Central and South America. But we had new technology come along in the 60s and 70s, and I'll talk about that later in my presentation. Thank y'all for coming. I hope that kind of gives everybody an overview why it's imperative that we're here. We got to try something different. What we're using is not working.
Yes, and again, thank you for pulling this together with the distinguished folks around the table here. You can certainly see the importance of this issue to not only the local municipalities and communities that are impacted by this, but also to nations, and really it even goes beyond that into further countries for international trade. This is an incredibly important issue. I think we've got the right people here. There's maybe a few folks that are missing from the table that might benefit to be part of the conversation, but as Commissioner Miller pointed out, we got caught a little bit flat-footed with this coming up here and wrapping up efforts to get a full response going, and I know that's in the works, and just the relationships that we develop with things like this, get everybody at the table and talk to each other is a great step, and I applaud y'all for pulling this together and look forward to some good outcomes from this meeting today. Thank you.
And also, some welcoming remarks from Mayor Teresa who also is an organizer of today.
Primeramente, pues muchas gracias. Es muy importante para Ciudad Juárez que hayan acudido a esta reunión, que nos parece muy importante para la vida no solamente económica, sino de los ciudadanos y ciudadanas de nuestro país, y en este caso de los estados que de una u otra manera hemos sido hermanos. Siempre hay que recordar que somos 3 estados en 2 ciudades, en 2 países que estamos relativamente coordinados de manera permanente, y hoy en un tema tan importante como lo es el tema del ganado, en donde habitualmente durante un siglo Chihuahua, Texas y Nuevo México pues han ido construyendo una relación ganadera pues, de las más importantes incluso en Latinoamérica. Esto es algo que no debemos dejar de lado, y por eso la importancia de tratar de encontrar un mecanismo de plática, de cooperación, para que esta situación que hoy detiene el traslado de 500,000 cabezas de ganado en una economía de 1.200 millones de pesos aproximadamente, lo que se mueve en nuestros lados, en ambos lados del país, pues nos enfrenta a que tengamos que platicar. Hoy estamos muy agradecidos por esta dinámica de poder platicar con agencias estadounidenses, que podamos tomar algunos acuerdos, algunas propuestas para tratar de avanzar en una problemática que nos tiene a todos. Entendemos con claridad que el tema del gusano barrenador no solamente es un problema con el ganado, o sea, ya está también en felinos, con los animales, con los perros, y que esto eventualmente puede escalar incluso hasta la salud pública con nuestros adultos mayores, nuestros niños. Por eso es importante atenderlo en ambos lados de los países que estamos aquí involucrados, pero también encontrando y entendiendo que el tema del ganado no se refiere específicamente a un becerro mexicano o un becerro estadounidense, se refiere a una cadena económica muy grande entre ambos países que representa obviamente economía en Estados Unidos y también en México. Entonces lo tenemos que entender más allá del tema ganadero, también es una dinámica habitual del comercio que se genera entre ambos países, y por eso es que Ciudad Juárez está listo para poderse coordinar con ambos lados para encontrar una solución a esta situación que hoy nos tiene parado el sistema de exportar ganado a
Gracias, Presidente. And now I would like to hand the word to our co-host Nelson.
Thank you again to the Mexico Border Authority for having us. The Border Commerce and Security Council is founded in 2013, basically working with binational organizations with the public sector and the private sector to really bring best practices to U.S., Mexico, and Canadian partners. We work very closely with Border Patrol, U.S. Customs, a lot of security agencies, USDA, and others to ensure there is the safety, security of not only for all trade, but but also the travel of personnel that come over the United States border on a daily basis. As we know, the trade with Mexico is number one for the United States. It's a very important partner, and we need to keep those with almost 32,000 trucks flowing over the border on a daily basis, and about 100,000 people going back and forth on a daily basis. There's a lot of commerce that happens between San Diego and Brownsville, Texas. So having these types of meetings, this is the first time in the history of our organization, and I believe everyone around this room, that we have had, with the vision of some of the folks that I'm going to name around the table, to have this type of meeting to talk about the issues regarding a major pandemic that is facing our food supply and security system in a North American point of view, not just U.S., but North America, including Mexico. And I think having the folks around the table, with Commissioner Miller's vision as well, to bring people together to agree here, certainly the New Mexico Border Authority and the Secretary of New Mexico of Agriculture certainly is important. But none of this would have happened if it wouldn't have been for a relationship that I fostered many months ago, maybe over a year ago now, with the former mayor of Juarez, Chihuahua, which is Mayor Cruz Perez Huella. And without his support, when he was still in function in his current role, I don't think we would be around this table today. So we started working on this months ago. Then we approached the Texas Department of Agriculture and others around the table to be able to ultimately convene this great panel that we hope to have this discussion. So those that don't have an agenda, some of the objectives that we hope to accomplish is ultimately to strengthen the cooperation among agricultural authorities, Texas, New Mexico, and Mexico. We want to establish a permanent framework for communication and technical coordination. We want to improve timely exchange of surveillance information and case notifications, coordinate prevention, surveillance, containment, and eradication strategies for the New World Screwworm, identify opportunities for expanded financial cooperation, and discuss potential White House communique on financial cooperation. So we're going to have a series of presentations, which I'll help moderate over the next hour or so, from the Department of Agriculture, from the New Mexico side, certainly the cattle crossing, and then we're going to also have some presentation of experts that we brought in to talk about what other strategies are available out there on top of what's happening. So certainly, I appreciate it, and we will turn it over to the Texas Department of Agriculture for their presentation.
Thank you, Nelson. Before I kind of give you the historical background, from the 1930s to up until the 1980s, we use a sterile fly technique, sterile insect, SIT is what it's called, SIT, sterile insect technique, which works, but you just have to have overwhelming numbers, and we don't have those, and we're not going to have them until probably the end of 2028. In Texas, we're building a new fly facility. It will not be fully in production until probably November of 2028. We can't wait that long. This thing, it'll be spread here and there, and it'll be 10 times harder to eradicate. So the best time to eradicate it is when the numbers are lowest. We missed that, but we need to get it before it gets completely out of control and they infest Louisiana, Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, Arizona, and the rest of the United States. Then you've got such a large geographical area; it's very expensive, and you probably won't have enough flies even when we get to 500 million in an area that big, including Mexico. So the problem right now is, since there's one place that's making sterile flies, and that's the Copeg unit in Panama, which is owned by the United States. We control those flies. Well, we started using in southern Mexico, and they moved forward. We used, moved them up. Well, now that it's in Texas, all those flies either come to Texas, northern Mexico, and all of Mexico has no defense, nothing. Y'all get nothing. I mean, no flies. We use them all. I mean, you can't blame us. We don't want to stop it. But you have absolutely zero defense. So we need to change that. So that's what we're working on. So in the 1970s and 80s, this is what I want everybody to hear. There was a new technique come up called the SWASS, S-W-A-S-S, Screwworm Adult Suppression System, SWASS. Very simple. It was a fly bait. They just put out a bait and killed the flies. Now, I run the pesticide program in Texas. We license about 50 different fly baits. We don't have one specifically for screwworm because we haven't had any screwworm flies in 50 years. But my team went back and researched, and we found the formula to make the fly bait. I've got it. It's in your packet right here. We'll go over that in a minute. So in 1976, we had a large outbreak in Texas. Remember, we got 2,000 today, right? We had 29,000 cases in 1976 in Texas. I mean, that's a bad outbreak. We deployed the SWAS system. We put out bait for 2 weeks. We put out bait for another 2 weeks. We kept it out 30 days. It killed 95% of the screwworm flies. And it killed mostly females, were most attracted to it. After that, we came back, and now that we got the population from this down to this, we released the sterile flies and eradicated them. Pushed it completely out of Mexico back down into Central and South America. It's that simple. If you look at your package, this sheet right here has got that blue line across the top. There's the recipe to make it. There's what it is. It's 31% sugar, 31% blood milk, 8% corn cobs. There's your insecticide, 1%. That's not a very strong insecticide. I mean, it's not. By the way, when they did this, we checked about 8 different times they used this around the world, and there was no detrimental effects to the environment. It did not harm other insects, no harm to wildlife, humans, livestock, fish. Pretty much harmless. There was no collateral damage. And a lot of people push back on that. And the last thing is Swarm Lure 5. They actually used Swarm Lure 2, which was the track. That's the track. It's not a pheromone. It's like a pheromone. It's what brings them in. Swarm Lure 5 is much improved. Swarm Lure 2, that would last about 2 or 3 days. Swarm Lure has a polymer in it, and it'll last about 2 weeks. This red thing you see up here is the trap we developed, and we put the Swarm Lure 5 in that, and we don't have to change it out for 2 weeks. The USDA next changes out every 2 to 3 days. So it's much more labor friendly, lasts a lot longer, and we just put a sticky board in the bottom of that red trap. We don't have to take the trap down. We just slide the board out, take it to the lab, and see what we got. So, anybody wants those traps, we'll share the dealer for those. We'll share the dealer. Century is the name of the company that makes our Swarm Lure 5. So that's it. I mean, it's pretty simple. We've still got sugar. We've still got blood meal. We've still got corn cobs. We've still got this insecticide, chlorofluron, is a derivative of dichlorobos. Dichlorobos is used in over 80 products in the U.S. It's still available. It's still available in Mexico. The only restriction I found in Mexico, you can't spray it directly on cattle or horses. We're going to spray it on. We're not going to spray it on anything. We're going to let flies eat it. So it should be fine. And then the Swarm Lure is readily available. So that's what we want to do. Is get this Mexico. I would encourage Mexico to immediately start down the path of manufacturing this fly bait, put it out, and get rid of your flies. 80 to 90%. The least successful was 80% kill rate. And we had a high rate of 95. So if you can suppress them, 80 to 90% of it, I'm for that. Raise your hand. Yeah, I'm for that. I'm going to do that. Now then, have another problem created by the onslaught of the screwworm fly, and that's the border crossing of cattle. We've had a great relationship with Mexico. We get about 15% of our starter cattle out of Mexico. We've got a shortage of cattle in the United States, the lowest numbers we've had in 75 years. And you take 15% more away, it really compounds our problem. So when we closed the border, we went back and researched. And in the 70s, 80s, and the 60s, and 50s, we never closed the border. We never closed it. There's no need to, I mean, the screwworms, they don't get through on imported cattle. I mean, they're inspected, re-inspected, quarantined, dipped, then they come across and they go through something similar again. They're just not going to come through on the cattle. There's just no way. So, I'm for opening the border. We've lost that. We had a great deal. We'd get your cattle up here, they would eat our wheat, eat our corn, ride our trucks, go through our processing plants, our labor, and then we'd sell the meat back. Now, it's all moving back to Mexico. Even if we open it up now, I don't think it'll ever go back like it was, because Mexico, and rightfully so, has expanded their feedlots. They're expanding their production. JBS is contemplating building a new plant in Mexico, but your labor's cheaper. So we probably lost this. We had a good deal, and I hate to see that. Now then, in my efforts to try to get the border reopened, I made a proposal to the USDA. Now, understand, I am a cattleman myself. I've been a cattle feeder. I'm a rodeo cowboy. So here's what my proposal was. Instead of just opening the border up to 1.4 million head of cattle all at once, let's do a pilot program, and let's open it up to Corriente cattle, rodeo stock. We import about 15,000 head of those. And we need them real bad, because they wear out. After about 6 months, you need a fresh set. And we hadn't had any in almost 2 years. So we need them. And they come from the desert region where there's no screwworms, right? So I said, let's open up border up to horn cattle, rodeo stock. At most it'd be 15, maybe 20,000, because they kind of backed up. And let's open it to horses. Why horses? We only import about 80 horses a week. Surely we can monitor them. They liked my idea, and they were taking a look at it. Brooke Rollins set up a press conference at the import facility in Arizona on a Friday, and was going to be there. Thursday, they canceled the meeting. And we didn't get the rodeo stock. So I'm still pushing that. I don't have an answer. I don't know what blew the deal up. But I still think that would be a good first step, is to import cattle out of a region where there's no screwworm. And it's not overwhelming numbers that we couldn't manage. So that's where we are on that. The third thing that I'm promoting, do we have a map of our infestations in Texas? I don't think we brought them. But
It may be in one of the presentations in the newsletter.
Look for it, and I'll point it out. If you look at the Rio Grande River in the counties in the southern third of Texas that touch that is what we call a fever tick zone. And those counties are quarantined. They have to make certain requirements. Yeah, that's it. That's it. And then the next one is that's it. If you blow it up. The interesting thing you'll see, these like 12 counties on the Rio Grande where this fever tick zone is, you'd think, and that's where across the river is where most of the Mexican infestations are. There's not one infestation in these 12 fever tick counties. They jumped the county in. None of them are on the river. Now that's it. That's it. So my theory is, about 15 years ago, they started putting out feed laced with ivermectin. So they're feeding ivermectin corn to the deer, the nilgai, and I think it's just kill the flies. The flies won't live there. They bite something and they die. they just won't. So all the flies infested in Texas, they jumped the fever tickets up. They didn't just walk across the river with a, feral hog or deer or something. If they did, the flies died. So I'm working real hard with the FDA, which is Food and Drug Administration, and the USDA, United States Department of Agriculture, to allow us to put ivermectin in wildlife and cattle feed. That would be save us, lots of livestock, lots of wildlife. This pest is going to decimate our deer herd. Because when the fawns are born, they lay eggs on the umbilical cord. You can rope a doctor calf. It's a little hard to rope doctor deer. It just doesn't work very good. So, very frustrated with my government. They're dragging their feet. They're fighting me on it. They said, well, it might build up resistance to ivermectin. Really? We're only going to use it 6 months when flies are active. Then it'll be 6 months we won't use it. How do you build up resistance if you don't keep it out year round? So anyway, that's where we are. We want more flies. We won't put out the fly bait and get ahead of this and start pushing it back. We want to be able to put ivermectin in cattle and wildlife feed. Hopefully we'll finally get there. The USDA has been very reluctant to even consider using the fly bait. So I'm hoping out of this meeting that Mexico will make their own fly bait and use it, so you'll have at least some kind of defense. It may not eradicate all of them, but if it gets 80 to 90% of them, that's pretty good. So we'll save questions till later.
Thank you.
Nelson, thank you.
You bet. Dave, can we get the folks from the New World Food Bank up here for the presentation? Yep. David, Richard, Justin, you'll be on deck.
Sid, I hope one day you will feel comfortable speaking your mind. David Carey, you need to be more this way. Sorry, I tasted my line. David Carey, I spent 30 years organizing capital in one of the largest investment firms in the world. My expertise is capital coordination and bringing together complex, diverse teams in a way that creates efficient, maximum impact. I founded High Ground Ranch Developers, HERD, to work with World Food Bank and another organization to improve the resilience of our food system, focusing on people and creating employment, lucrative opportunities for veterans to run and own their own ranches without being burdened by debt. To do that, I need cows to work with in Mexico. So that's why we're here, is trying to figure out a way to get the border flowing for us to get more cows. I'm going to introduce a few of the team. A couple of them are not going to speak, but I just want to let you know who they are and that they're here. First, though, there's one who could not join us. His name is Jeff Geiger. Jeff recently retired from Texas Christian University's Institute of Ranch Management. Jeff told me recently, he said, it seems like everyone is a screwworm expert these days. And we were joking about it because Jeff is the screwworm expert. Jeff and his team have been studying ranches in Panama for nearly 15 years. They were in Panama 5 years ago watching a heat map of the fly as it was coming back, and they knew then it was coming. 3 years ago, they started sounding the alarm that something needed to be done. And it was their report that caused the USDA to close the border. So Jeff is working on this initiative with us. At the back of the room is Max Young. Max is CEO of America. Half America, half Mexico. Wave, so we can see him. Feel free to talk to him later. Max has worked on 17 ranches for large corporate clients. He's worked in Mexico, Brazil, Bolivia, Niger, and Israel. He's worked on on agricultural assistance programs with the Rural Bank of Mexico in the states of Durango, Sinaloa, Sonora, and Chihuahua. Our expert in blockchain-based, AI-driven data security and protection and tracking is Justin Jones, CEO of SecurityX. And to be clear, in this case, AI is artificial intelligence. Justin's team has created the secure trace Screwworm certification program for this effort. And he'll tell you about it momentarily, but I'll tell you that it comes from 26 years of experience in building large-scale diagnostic testing programs for demanding clients, like law enforcement and municipalities. So every core element of what he has built for this purpose comes from multiple years of working with significant, similar but different type settings. Richard Lackey is chairman of World Food Bank. World Food Bank has set up food systems globally, especially across Africa. They've advised on food systems. Richard has a background in medicine. So because of his medical background combined with his ability in setting up food systems, Richard sat on the board of advisors for USAID during President Trump's first term. That has given him experience in dealing with outbreaks of Ebola and 7 other deadly viruses. Folks, that's what we're dealing with here. This is Ebola for cows. Technically, you might call it malaria since it's a fly. But we need to treat this like it's Ebola. So thankfully, there are protocols in place for Ebola. And Sid, you want a different tack? We've got a different tack. SWAS is an important part of that different tack, but it's proven in multiple environments and other settings. We're just going to apply it to cattle. So Richard Lackey is going to come up and explain that to you.
Pass this around. Okay. See if this is enough. I have a little bit of Latin blood in me, so I want to make sure I don't go over time. Anyway, thank you, Commissioner Miller and Assistant Commissioner Taylor for being here.
They're recording. Thank you.
I've been told I have a face for radio. Anyway, thank you for being here. Do we have a? Oh, you're going to change my. That is so fancy. How about I show them this? Okay.
Yes, sir. I can move you.
No, you're good. You're good. So I chair the World Food Bank Group. We work in countries all around the world. We build systems for agriculture, primarily helping integrate agricultural ecosystems so that every party benefits, rather than one system, one person suffering. And in my experience, most of the time, the person suffering is the farmer. We build systems where those farmers are guaranteed in certain ways and measures. Right now, the biggest challenge that we have is getting the border open. And just so that you have a little bit of a visual of what New World Screwworm looks like, this is just a small example of what we see in animals, and this is what's going to show on the news in different areas, and it's going to scare the Jesus out of people. Right? We don't need to see this in the markets. It hurts farmers and ranchers everywhere. But it's coming unless we do something about it, as Mr. Miller suggested. Let's go to the next page. Thank you. You have 2 to 3 weeks lifespan for these flies. So they don't move a huge distance, but we've seen in enough consistency that we can estimate weeks in advance. We knew 3 months in advance they were going to be in, we were going to start seeing them in Texas. We also know that they were in Texas before we saw them, right? Because people see the incidents, they take care of it, and they don't report it. We know that there's 21 days for egg to launch. So if we have that period, as long as we have a 21-day clear period, 95% of the time it's 14 days, those animals are clear. They're as clear as anything. If they get infected after that, that's because they got infected after that. So the question is, what do we do during the first 14 days? And if we want to be extra careful, in the U.S. we would say we want to have a belt and suspenders. We want both. We want everything together, and I think Commissioner Miller shared that as well. SWAS is one of those things that we're going to share with you, and it has incredible results. And if we want to be extra sure, we add in the other things. We want sterile flies, and there are other technologies, ivermectin and others. When you add them on top of each other, you get the benefit of stacking. And the results go from 80, instead of going to 80 to 90, they go 80 to 94. When you add 3, they go from being 80 to 90 to 94 to 99.5. So these things combined together give us incredible, incredible confidence. Quite frankly, they will be more secure than they were 3 years ago, because we weren't doing all this before. So the animals will literally be cleaner when we go through this protocol than they've ever been before. The wound infestation, we call it a myiasis, creates a tissue loss that not only damages the value of the animal, when it invades and gets into the rest of the animal, it's worthless. So people don't want to buy animals that have been infected, even though there's not real risk to humans necessarily. It damages the tissue, it damages the quality, and quite frankly, it damages the brand. We lose people's confidence in the quality and the value of our cattle. Humans can get this disease that's caused by the flies, but it's very, very rare. So there's not really a concern with that, but there is a concern with maintaining good animal health in everything that we do. Let's move to the next. I'm passing this out so you have a copy that you can review. Yes?
I have a question. These wounds, they are pre-existing wounds that the larvae are planted in by the females, or?
That's a great question, and I'll give you the basic answer. They typically they're attracted to blood, which is why these bait traps have a dry cattle blood in them, because that's what they're smelling, and then they get killed because when they eat it, the poison is in there. But they're attracted by the blood. So if there's a small scrape, if a cow walks by a fence and scrapes himself, if it steps on something and it gets a cut, a small wound is enough to attract those flies, and the wound, and those flies will now go from old days, they would plant 10 or 20 larvae. Now we have incidents where there are 100 larvae. So we need to stop them as soon as possible, right? We need to kill them as quickly as we can. This is kind of looking at the pathway that you were mentioning earlier. If you look at where the expectation, if we don't do anything, so this is for the America folks, if you don't do anything, this is a natural spread of screwworm. And mi español es un poco pobre, pero yo creo muy mal. Eso es un problema muy grande, ¿verdad? This is difficult. And it only gets more difficult because when you start breeding animals here, this is a breeding zone for them. This isn't an infection zone. This is a breeding zone. When you breed them, where are they going to go? They're going to continue moving. We have neighbors in Panama, Costa Rica, Guatemala, Nicaragua, right? They've all seen this. They move. They don't stay in one area. They continue to move. Unless you stop the growth, they will continue to move. They'll move further south, and they will continue to move further north. There is a rapid regional infestation. The summer range right now, the sooner we get going, the better. Hopefully, we will have a winter that will help offset some of this and create a barrier. Last year, I live in Colorado. In Colorado, we're known for ski resorts. We weren't last year. We had 4 people ski last year. Right? There was no snow. They were skiing in mud. If we have a winter like that, screwworm is going to go crazy. So we can't bet on the coming winter. We have to begin now. So there's this uncertain expansion, and I can guarantee you that once it gets into North Carolina, the people in Washington, D.C. will pay attention. But right now, we need to make sure that we're paying attention to our southern border. The next slide. This is the one thing I want to caution you against, and I spend a lot of time in developing markets. We talk about cows and cattle, and people quit eating beef, and they'll just adjust their diet, and they'll stop eating beef over the period. It'll take 5 or 7 years for them to rebuild that demand for the quality of beef. Once you see this in pets, which it will be, and it's on national TV, which people, I'm not saying anything because I love and respect our news people and our weather people, but once this is on news and we have people's pets being infected, then all of a sudden people are going to pay attention. So again, this has to be addressed now. We need to do something now before it gets in. We have deer, we have pigs, we have other animals obviously going across the border now, and they have potential risk. So we need to address the issue at the level of the fly before we have further issues. Next. And I'll send you some stuff by AI that looks much better. Anyway, this is a $1.2 billion feeder stalker issue just in Texas and New Mexico. It's going to be substantially more, it's going to be substantially more as we go into this year. So those numbers may go up 50 to 150%. It could get dramatically worse if we don't continue. Not to mention all the people that are running the borders, the cross-border trade of 1.5 to 2.5 billion. These numbers were primarily set up to show the issue and concern for the U.S. This is also in Mexico. It's billions and billions of dollars. And what's frustrating, I guess is the kind word to use. What's frustrating is this could be solved with a small fraction of these dollars. And it can be solved by simply following a protocol using old cowboy knowledge from years and years ago and adding on the newer technologies that we have. So we have 2+ years of depressed beef demand once that fear takes hold. We're on the verge of it right now. It's already begun. And by Christmas time, it will be across the U.S. Next. I don't want to spend a huge amount of time on this because I think we know what this is, but this is a policy gap. It's a solvable issue. We have people with different ideas, but the consensus we hope will come out of this is that the solution is really to bring all of those ideas together. And for the sake of time, I'm gonna jump to the next slide, if you don't mind. You all have this handed out, hopefully. And but what really works, and this works in human medicine as well as in animal medicine, is when we have a disaster. If there's Ebola, Tzatziki, if you have any of these other viruses that come up in other places, the first thing we do is identify the sickest people and move them away. We identify the healthy people and we move them away. We identify those that we're not sure about, and we test them and see if we can increase their health. And if we can increase their health, they're good, and then we move them. And we move them into safe areas. One of the technologies that we use, for example, for Ebola in Africa, was a technology originally created to test discs in a computer, and they would send energy through it and see if it heated up past 1 degree, like 1/10 of 1 degree. And if it did, they'd kick the chip out and not use it for the computer. We now can take those technologies and look across a herd of cows or a herd of humans, and I can see 300 people in line, and I can pick out that man and those 2 children need to be pulled. Their temperature is 1 degree above everyone else's. They have Ebola. They're standing in line spreading. Let's move them away. We now can do that with animals. We can look at those animals and test them, look at them in line and say, pull, these animals seem to be normal temperature, and we can take the other animals and move them aside if they're questionable and test them. You're going to hear a little bit about a technology where we're doing PCR testing on site. So you're literally able to bring in an animal, test them to make sure that they don't have it, so you know for certain that they don't. You put them through a chute. We dip them like we normally do. Then we bring them across. We PCR test them again, and we ivermectin them. That's a belt and suspenders model. And then we send them to a quarantined area for 21 days, into an area that's outside of normal. We're confident enough in this at World Food Bank Group that we have funding to buy all of those animals because they believe that there's enough percentage that are going to be healthy, that using this multi-stage model where we separate the healthy from the sick, we slow the transmission. If you keep on letting swaths grow and you keep moving animals, eventually you're going to start seeing positives, and that positive number is going to grow. So we need to begin this swath, the technology that the commissioner was sharing, and we need to begin moving further south. We need to go to the clean areas and move them west. And if we start doing that, we'll reduce the numbers and slow the count, and we can begin moving healthy animals north. And as we take them from the north, we'll move them to the north, to the edges, where they'll be closer to winter, they'll be in good grasses, and they'll be clear from everything else. And the third part, which I think everyone has been in consensus here, is that we do want to accelerate the eradication. We do want to see the SIT technology. And there are new SIT technologies. Again, these are things that 5 or 10 years ago didn't exist terribly well. Parts have existed and parts existed there, but they can now take X-ray technology in a mobile container and pull that container out and start shooting X-rays through a fly so that they don't have the radiation sickness that you get from doing traditional models like we do in Panama. And those flies, we can use wild flies for that, and we can set it up for a fraction of the cost. My suggestion is that we begin moving those into dense areas, and we start doing those flies while we're taking the swaths and moving them further south. And we do all of those as closely as we can. This is the model in 4 steps. We move the healthy animals out, we begin the swaths, brush it, we use the modular SIT, and then that gives us time to build up the volumes where we're doing the numbers that we're talking about, which right now are unattainable. And if we wait on the SIT volumes of production to get as high as we would like them to be, it'll be too late. We've got to do something now. So this gives us a chance to begin reducing the numbers. And again, while SWAS is not 100%, SID is not 100%, SWAS has a huge, huge impact. If we can get rid of the low numbers, 80%, that's a massive, massive slowing of the proliferation of this disease state. Let's go to the next thing. This is where it gets interesting, and I hope this gets you excited, especially the folks that are coming from Chihuahua and Coahuila and what have you. There's an arbitrage, an inefficiency in market pricing, as you know. In the U.S., prices are at the point where restaurants are closing. Processors are closing because the cost is so high. In Mexico, the buying has dropped. I think we were hitting new lows yesterday for a while. There's a space between there where if we can solve this problem, we can meet in the middle and we'll get better pricing in the U.S. and you'll get better pricing in Mexico. So we know that we can come in and guarantee a 30% price improvement for the cows that you bring in and they run through this protocol. We can also, if we do this to a protocol model where we bring in animals that the ranchers commit to this model, we can put $100 a head back into a SWAS fund for Mexico to fund this need. You need federal support. You need state support. But we can subsidize some of that here so we can get started now. I think that's a pretty huge offer. This is what normally people would say, open the border, let's squeeze all the profit we can. What we're saying is let's work together to bring the prices together, to reduce the volatility, get the farmer making more, and start opening the border by proving a protocol. And there are ranchers in America that would love to see those cattle coming in. There are processors that would love to see them in. And I think in Mexico, if we begin this protocol, the protocol will become somewhat standard. If we run it 6 months or 12 months, it'll become standard of practice. If we take those 30% and you move in animals, 100,000 head would fund all of your SWAS in all of Mexico. So I don't know if you remember President Trump early on saying we're going to build a wall and Mexico is going to pay for it. I don't remember that. I think that's fake news. But anyway, but you literally can solve your problem in American ranchers or banks, right? Because we're rebating back a piece of normally what would be market revenue, and it's going back to pay for SWAS to stop the problem. And it's a good deal because people like agricultural commissioners in New Mexico and Texas, we're stopping a problem that is going to come. It's coming to us, so we need to go to the source and begin stopping it. It's a way to help you get some inertia. We still need to get federal. We still need to get state participation, especially when you add in the monitoring, the mobile, the revenue, the mobile sit units and what have you. But we believe that through this model, 30% remitted back into a special fund. The other piece that we want to do is the other side of this. So how do American ranchers benefit? They love having high prices, right? There's some guys that say, hey, we don't need an open board. We'll just keep selling cows at record prices. It's fine with us. There's still several million cows, and they can keep doing that for a few more years. They are selling the replacement heifers, and we know that. But the small farmers that only had 50 or 100 cows are running out of cows. So what we did is we created a fund, and we're taking 70% of the principal payment made for those animals. So a cattle rancher in Mexico, in Chihuahua, says, I'm going to sell my animal, say it's $1,000. 700 stays in a U.S. fund for agriculture. You get returns on it, 6%, 10%, 18%, whatever the returns are. It's secured by animals and land in the U.S. I know a lot of ranchers in Mexico that would love to have some of their investment dollars in the U.S. So it's a way for them to keep part of the money there and see the remaining dollars come back for taxes and all that. We want to make sure. But the rancher wins by getting a better price today, and they get an ownership stake in the ranches in the U.S. So now we're rebuilding herd volume in the U.S. by opening these borders. It's the same story. We're just putting a protocol to it, but it's the same ideation that I think everyone else is expressing. So you saw a great model that Nelson brought in, this sample of these fly traps. You have a cap that keeps the weather off of it. You've got this swarm lure, and there's dichlorobos, there's trichlorophon, and you guys can discuss which are better or which are worse. For me, I just need them out there. They all kill flies. Trichlorophon may be a little better than dichlorobos for a few different reasons. Dichlorobos, some people still like that for other reasons. The difference between 82% and 85% is not as important to me as just getting it done, right? Just get on the horse and let's ride. We'll figure out the end place we're going, but we know we're going west. At the very, very worst, if we have a 50 to 85% adult suppression, that's the bottom end. If we have in that range, it will dramatically change the trajectory, and it will allow us to prove this protocol of bringing healthy animals across. Can you see where we're going with this? If we prove we can bring healthy animals across, you're going to hear from Justin, we have a technology that allows us to test them, treat them again, test them again, monitor them ongoing, and that works. We can go from 2,000 head to 4,000 head to 8,000 head, and we can start opening the borders because we're proving that the protocol works, whether we have full suppression or not. And by removing animals that are in an area that is at risk into an area that is less at risk, we're doing the animals better, we're doing the ranchers better, we're doing the marketplace better. So, I come from a medical background. I would love to see this done in a study so that we don't have this problem done again. We don't have to go through this. We call it normally you would do a zero test, right? I think I have Ebola. But we're not going to give you any medicine because we want to see if you are exposed and don't have medicine, do you die? We don't want to do that. We don't want to have some animals get it. We don't want a zero test, right? We don't want to. So what we do is we do an A line and a B line. You do swaths all across a perimeter line. And then you do, back behind it, you offset and you do another beta line to see what breakthrough there is. So then you can see, well, I'm killing 78% here and I'm killing another 7% here. It gives you an idea both of the movement and the growth and the change in the volume of flies that are moving. It also kills more flies. Right? That's what we love, and then we would like to bring in universities, Veracruz, I think we talked to, there's others, obviously Chihuahua, that we could talk to about doing some of the actual monitoring and evaluation. The World Food Bank Group, that's what we do. We would be happy to oversee and help to whatever degree we could. And this is just kind of showing the map, and all of that's included. You can. The system that we'll talk about on SIT, and I'm not going to get into a whole lot of detail, but essentially the modular version, and the fellow that does that is not here today, and I wanted to just share it with you because right now we're spending $750 million to do large volume sterile insect technique. We can spend $4 to $6 million at a time, have mobile units that can be set up in 90 to 120 days and be producing. That may be a tool to add to the list. Again, just another tool in the toolbox. We can capture wild flies. And if any of you have ever had chemotherapy, you're not really strong after chemotherapy. You don't want to go dancing. Sometimes you don't feel so virile. I don't know too many people that come out of chemotherapy saying, I'm sexy now. Not so many. There may be, I just haven't seen them in 25 years, and that's it. Flies are kind of the same. When you put them through radiation, they kind of come out and go, whew, that was tough. I gotta go mate. I got a limited time, but they're limited in their capacity. Using old techniques of X-ray in mobile centers where you're X-raying them. How many people have felt really horrible after an X-ray? Not so much. So you can use X-ray technology in mobile clinics, get wild flies that are already viral, ready to go. They know their time. They know the calendar they've got to follow. We bring them in, zap them, ship them out. It's a cheaper, portable, faster turn-up solution, something to be considered. All of these are like a menu. There's appetizers and entrees, and this may be the dessert. I don't know, but it's something to consider. We can have these operational in 4 to 6 months. This is not us, but World Food Bank Group works with teams that do this. We know that we have other facilities working, and I'm not going to cover that right now because Commissioner Miller did such a great job. Do that next. Thank you. And I'm going to give you this one as kind of an entree. The verified tracking is really important. The same thing with when we have disease states or virus or infection rates, we need to follow where those things are. And it matters. And I'm going to give you a quick story. The head of the CDC for East Africa sits on our board. As you know, they have an issue with Ebola right now in Congo and parts of Uganda and what have you. That team is better at identifying them, the folks that had Ebola and the spread, than the CDC in Atlanta, Georgia, or anywhere else, because they've done it for many, many years, right? Max would tell you, getting a guy that's a farm manager isn't a vaquero. We need someone that really knows how to run animals to run animals. The same thing happens when we're doing disease management. If we go to Uganda, for example, we had Ebola pop up, no one said anything, there were 1 or 2 cases, then a village 50 kilometers away, another case popped up. And then a week later, another case popped up. Well, it wasn't enough that the federal people reported it. But the local CDC people said, hold on a minute, that's the cattle path. The guys moving their cattle from southern Uganda to northern Uganda, those people were carrying Ebola, and they were spreading it. So when they went and backtracked where those guys were, they were able to start pulling them out, treating them, and stopping the disease spread. We need that kind of tracking to know where these animals are and where they're going, so we can be 100% certain what we brought in and the effective rate that we have. I'm excited to see it. I'm confident enough in the protocol that I want to see this, because I think the numbers are going to be 100%. I want to be able to go out to the market and say, look, this is what Sid's been asking for a long time. We added this, we added other protocols on top of this, and these are the results. I don't want to bring pests and insects with disease-carrying insects into the U.S. My goal is to stop it. I don't want to be the guy that has that name, but I'm confident enough in this that I think this is not only is it an opportunity, it's a necessity. We need to get it done. I'll leave it there and let you take over. We'll have our contact information is on those documents and at the end of the last design. Thank you so much.
We have a question here.
Sure.
I have a question. Just out of curiosity, you're talking about the swabs. What testing mechanism did you use to show, to prove that you were killing like 80% of the flies?
Oh, good question. So there's been probably over 30 studies done. You have studies literally from back in the 60s and early 70s, early 90s, mid-2000s, where this has popped up. Studies have been done in different ways. So some is where they're taking the number of flies that they catch and see if the numbers decrease to a certain count. So if you assume that in the catchment you bring in 1,000 flies and 8% have screwworm flies, then you have an 8% rate of infection rate, right? And we project that onto a potential projection of potential infection rate. Then the next time we go to 6%, and then 4%. That's why you do a pay line, and you keep doing it every 2 weeks to see those numbers go down. That's how you walk out those numbers. And the more of them that you do, the more statistically significant that is. One of the things I would say though is you can cure them. You can cure them in Chihuahua, and you didn't solve the problem in Covina, right? They're going to keep on coming. You can stop them, but we need to not just stop them. We need to be active. We need to be proactive and move the line back. And areas that we have that are, whether they're high ground areas that may have fewer flies, where we can circle that area and move out, that we need to do that as well.
Just comment on that. This SWAS program really doesn't need to be studied. It was launched in real time multiple times. It was used in Texas, which I referenced. It's been used in New Mexico, Arizona, Mexico, Southwest tropical Mexico, Panama, Central America,
Georgia, Florida.
Yeah, and it worked every time to different degrees, like I said, 80 to 95%. A couple other observations. The number one species of mammal affected in Mexico right now is cattle. Number two, to make your point, is dogs. The second highest rate of infection is dogs. And we're talking about what kind of wounds do they get in? Dogs, it was tick bites. Something as small as a tick bite is enough blood to track that. What happens when one screwworm fly finds that wound, it gets in there and lays its eggs, and they hatch. It stinks more, so here comes more screwworm flies. So you may have, instead of the 50 to 75 maggots in there, if it's untreated, they may be 3,000. I'm You saw that hole
Like that deer. That deer had several.
Just multiple. So, just an observation. So we really, and they went in, and I don't know what the protocol was. They measured how many active flies they had before they put it out, then they measured how many was alive after they put it out. I don't know how they did.
There have been different protocols, and if you, my information is on the last page of that handout. If you email me, I'll send you a list of links to studies. So there's over 30. I'm happy to send those.
The original science was done between USDA researchers and Sao Paulo University. It was a joint effort. That was the very first one. And then it was launched.
One more question. Could you briefly explain again this idea of financing Mexican ranchers and why they healthy cattle and how the financial?
Sure. Yeah, I'll give a little bit, and I'm happy, and I don't want to take all your time, but I'll give you the basics. So the bottom line is, in the United States of America, we have a movement to do more regenerative agriculture, where we're doing what we call actively managed paddock grazing, or holistic grazing, or what have you. The challenge is there's not a lot of funding to have people slowly convert to that. It involves cover crops and some other things. And so there's been a need to build. We're launching a fund now. But it's only going to be 250 to 500 million. We need billions and billions of dollars. So the idea here is we're able to take, and I have a lot of friends that are ranchers in Mexico, and if we're able to take the principal amount, 70% retained, and put it into a bank, that in the U.S. it's on a 10-to-1 ratio. I can take $100 million and create $1 billion in lending for farmers and ranchers, and the ranchers in Mexico are now secured by land and cattle in the U.S. So they're now equity holders in a bank, which is federally secured and so on and so forth. So they get very high security and a decent return. That's the win for the U.S., right? It helps us create a financing mechanism to do that. We carved out the $100. World Food Bank Group is a benevolently missioned company. So our goal is to make sure that we will sacrifice profits, we'll sacrifice what's needed to make sure that the ecosystem is built. Most of the places that we work, within 3 or 4 years, we don't work there anymore. The system is self-sustaining and it's resilient. They don't need us, quite frankly. Here, the goal is to start getting these animals in enough. And how do we fund? Mexico may be more efficient, but in the U.S., it could take us 6 to 12 months to get that financed. I'm just saying. Sid's been around a long time. He knows he might get it done faster, but I worked in D.C. every week for 5 years, and I never found things to speed up, even while I was there. And so our thought is, if we need to get this done starting yesterday, we need to finance it. So this won't finance everything, but it'll be hopefully, if we could get the federal governments or the state of Chihuahua, the state of Coahuila, to come in and say, hey, look, you put in $3 million, we'll put in $3 million. You put in $5 million, we'll put in $5 million. Whatever it is, if we can use that as a tool to leverage, so that the states and the federal government see how important it is, this extra $100 back into that system should help a lot. Is that?
No, I think and when Mexico and the U.S. inaugurated the new plant, lifeline in Chiapas, the U.S. government committed to invest $83 million for all these purposes.
Right. And I think the dollars are there to get it done. We just need them to be unlocked and to be put into what we would say is a protocol, a SWAS, SID combined protocol.
I'll just add on the 83 million. So the State Department committed 83 million. It's going through APHIS. Half of it is for cattle inspection, and the other half is for sterile fly production. So it doesn't seem like SWAS is in there. So I'm assuming USDA opposes SWAS. Can you explain why they oppose it, if that's correct?
I can't explain that, but I'm not sure that I want to explain that. Yeah, because I didn't bring any white jelly, and I don't want to be abused. So let me see. No, I think that probably isn't appropriate for TV. By the way, I should edit that. What I would say is that the newer technologies allow us to build tons of flies, and they have had great results from it. The SWAS technology is older and proven, and we've modified it. It also works.
nothing is 100%. So I think that we need both. I can understand that as we become more tech-centric, we want to use technologies as much as we use old-fashioned things. But what we could really use is if the dollars are allocated that way, is maybe some of that 40 million is going towards the SIT, go to the mobile centers that are using X-ray rather than radiation. Because we'll get healthier flies coming out of that versus the radiation models. That's one. And then I would say that if we can get this protocol moving properly and you get enough animals across it, you can fund all of the SWATs if you start moving animals across. You want $3 million, move 30,000 cows. You want $10 million, move 100,000 cows. You see what I'm saying? So that the idea is as we move those animals across, it's kind of self-funding the SWAT, which is why that's what we try to do is to build ecosystems that can be self-justifying. Does that answer your question? A little bit. Okay. Sorry about that.
I can answer this question.
Yeah.
So I put this SWAT information in the hands of Brooke Rollins 3 times and her staff. They've got it. First time I put it in their hands, I said, they come back and said, well, we can't use it. Why not? What's wrong? She said, well, it's environmentally insensitive. I said, what the hell does that mean? I said, look at good flies. What the hell's a good fly? I don't know what a good fly is. I said, okay, if it kills too many blowflies, you got a fly factory, just go make some more of them, turn them loose, we're good. And then they come back and say, well, we can't use the SWAT system, it'll kill the sterile flies. I said, well, only an idiot would put both of them out at the same time. You put out the fly bait first, and then you follow up with the sterile. You don't put them out both. No one ever suggested to put them both out at the same time. And that's the only 2 objections they've ever given. That's it. It's like they only want to build that $1 billion fly factory and get it up and running. Now, I will say this, and I agree with you. They are working on a technology called the Nova Fly, which produces only male flies. So remember, when they have that 100 million fly release, half of them are females. So it's really only 500,000 males. They have to use so much radiation to sterilize the females that it really knocks the males down. If they only could produce male flies, the radiation load is much lower, so it doesn't settle down. If we could get just sterile male flies produced that are viral and happy, we probably wouldn't need the SWAT system. But we're not there yet. We're not. And it's probably down the road, we'll probably get there. But it's not, today's what I'm interested in. I'm going to stop it today.
I'll just add that the USDA Special Advisor for New World Screwworm Preparedness, Dr. Bellinger, he was just in Mexico City, 14th to the 16th. He met with Seneca, Javier Calderon, and they did talk about Novo Fly approval. So some process for moving that forward. So there's no opposition to that, as far as I.
I'm not. I think that'd be the best of everything. If you get that, we don't have it. I'm going to stop it today.
All right, way to move forward. Justin, go ahead.
Yes, hey everybody, Justin Jones with SecurityX. So I think we know the ultimate goal here is to eradicate these nasty pests, and I want to shift gears on y'all and introduce what I kind of call a key to helping reopen our borders. Called Secure Trace. It's a biosecurity surveillance program, digital, bringing together AI technology and blockchain security to make sure that everything we're doing is not only verifiable but tamper-proof, so it meets all the standards for government regulatory officials out there. So imagine it almost like in simpler terms, it's a digital passport for animals. And this isn't something just off the cuff. Back during COVID, I used to actually run a program for the state of Texas and the federal government for immigrants coming into the country. Having to make sure they're tested and everything was safe so they could continue on with their journey. So we're basically using proprietary testing to start this. We want to do, obviously, a visual surveillance, make sure these animals aren't infected. If an animal might have gotten infected and one cough, we want to add another layer in there, and that's where we bring in this proprietary rapid testing. It was mentioned, results in 10 minutes. It's basically similar to the rapid COVID testing that I'm sure y'all are familiar with. You see it at the grocery store or like drugstores. Same technology that we created for this. Once we do that, an animal is negative. We then take a prophylaxis measure and we run through what's called stable local. It's a spray that kills 99.9% of all the bacteria on the animal and the olfactory smells that attract screw flies to these animals. We then get them loaded into transit. Everything, by the way, is documented through our digital platform. Images are taken, uploaded. AI is basically calculating and formatting all this data into a profile for every single individual animal. We then track these animals through GPS all the way to a final destination point. At that time, we wait 14 to 21 days and retest the animals again to ensure safety. So the whole point of this program is to basically monitor these animals, to get them across the border in a safe, responsible, but verifiable way that meets regulatory government standards, but also so the public knows that they're not having, possibly infected animals coming into their areas which could cause harm. So there's that public perception too. The program is pretty straightforward and simple, and the ports of entry, coincidentally, are set up really great for it. In fact, this is the largest port of entry in the United States, and I know it's causing a lot of economic damage at this point. And so, not only can this program be a key to help open up the commerce between the countries, but also it can help move animals into a safe environment and then help, the loss of animals from this nasty parasite. So it's something we think will work really well with what was been presented earlier as kind of a starting point to get the animals through and then on to the next level. Any questions?
We'll have some time for questions afterward. Thank you much. We're going to move over to the New Mexico Department of Agriculture, the Livestock Board. I don't know if you have a presentation or a conversation, but I know Dave has something on the hand.
Take it away. Go ahead.
Ready to go? You need to have all to do a song and dance up here. We want to put that. This is an overall board. This is a video of the facility that we did a few years ago. We'll be right here. This is the American side. That's the Mexican side. San Jeronimo, our sister company. These are our pens. 35 acres, 55 total on the American side. Stables for our horses. We built those the last few years. Our auction house, Garlock pens. We automated facility until 2007. We really can't find good help. Here in the U.S., I don't know what happened, but our work ethic is gone down. Can't find people to work. We import a lot of dairy animals from Mexico, a lot of stringers. We changed our export facility, built a new facility at the Far Eastern side. You'll be seeing what used to be our export facility. It's now offices. My name is Daniel Manzanares. I'm the director of the largest international import-export livestock facility in North America. It's here. It's down here in Santa Teresa, New Mexico. Best known secret for many, many years. We're an agriculture cooperative, American agriculture cooperative that's foreign owned. It's owned by the Chihuahua cattle growers. This is our mission. We do everything we do is in English and Spanish. a lot of groups come from Mexico. We have groups that come from Malaysia, from Taiwan, Thailand, to duplicate our system in their country, land crossing. Next. Nuestra visión, our vision. Next slide. Our strengths, weaknesses. I've been asked to move fast. We're short on time. Opportunities, we've been doing this. Put in a new kitchen, international horse import-export complex. We just flew in, oh God, what was it, 17 horses from Mexico, unloaded in El Paso. They came, they were quarantined, USDA came along, sealed trucks, and they were allowed to come in the country. So they fly, but it's these hunter-jumpers, polo ponies, that kind of thing. Next. Still keep that in there. Where's TB coming from? It's not coming from Mexico, it's coming from Wisconsin. Infected by employees that are in El Salvador, Honduras, that have tuberculosis, and they're feeding animals. We're kind of like bare bones. We have 38 employees down to 4. All right, man. That's our org chart, organigrama, same thing. Our president, back on please. Our president is Alvaro Bustillos, but the vice president, secretario, is Florencio Ramos right there. He represents chain of command. All right, the rest of us are here in the United States. Next slide. First time we crossed, 15th of January of '92. No heels, steers. That was it. No spade heifers in. Everybody signed and put in carpet grass or something else. I wasn't here, but I was told that. All right. USDA slide. The reason this goes back to '96, and we opened in '92. Now, the reason I have these numbers, this is New Mexico, and this right here is El Paso, Texas. Now, the reason I have these numbers in blue is until 2004, the numbers that USDA was applying to Texas, the state of Texas, and they were actually New Mexico cattle. So that's in 2004. I came down and talked to the ADIC, and that got fixed. Next slide. And this is, well, actually, put it back. The wonder about this slide, and they don't do this anymore due to all the cuts. The wonder is that you can see the entire southern border, all the crossings, by fiscal year. Next slide. Percentage basis on all the imports. Next slide. Our numbers in 2024, 500,000 we crossed. 501, but 1,000 up in the horses, so 500,000. We had grown to that. Our best year was 606,000 in 2020, but that was because Chihuahua was in a drought, and they had to spay and get a hell of a lot of cattle out of there. Here in the United States, we cry when it's 2 years in a drought, and in Mexico, they'll last 6, 7, 10 years, man. It's a different thing. But they got some rain, so that's good. Next slide. This is basically how we run. We run in a fall, spring run. We start September, October, and we peak in late March, April. And that's how we would run cattle here. In the summer, we'd go down. You could just run quickly. This is a breakdown. These are your roping steers, rodeos. Very important. That animal used to be $200 at the border in 2007. It's running $1,600. It was a year and a half ago at the border. They've gone up in price. They're in huge demand. All right, next. Exportation, we exported a lot of dairy. You've got that a lot of springers. Everybody knows what a springer is? Pregnant, dairy cat come down. She's young. They have like 35 to the truck, and when they come here, if they get jostled, they're pregnant, ready to drop, so they can lactate quickly at the dairy. If they get bumped and a little heifer is born, if that little heifer is born, she's worth $3,500, and the paperwork gets changed, and she goes. If it's a little bull calf, the bull calf, they can just put him in the corner, he can die. So what I'll do is I'll call the FFA or the 4-H or farmers, and they'll come pick them up, and they have a calf project. So we don't let anything die. Next. and we can just swing through that. Next slide. It's the same patterns. Go ahead. Next. The issue that you see going up is on horses, slaughter horses. Next slide. Now, import, steers and heifers. When you have 2/3 steers and 1/3 heifers, spayed heifers, you're good. As your numbers increase and you get more of a half, 50%, what happens is you'll end up having a 2-year decrease based on animal. Next. 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 That's when we dropped off. That's when it started. They closed us in November of 2024, November 26th at 1 o'clock. Call. We had 8,300 head ready to cross. Next 3 days before Thanksgiving didn't happen. So we are closed until 3rd week of February. We were open again. They were supposed to, here it was, we crossed $1.4 million worth of cattle when we usually cross $1.2 billion worth of cattle through this port alone. Next. Next. Horses, slaughter horses went up, and then we got shut down because they closed the border now in 2026, not just for import, but for export. We keep them completely separated, that way there's no contamination, cross-contamination, corrals. Next. Ooh, look at that, nothing. Next. That's it, nothing. Now I'm going to show you something. I'm going to walk around the room. I'm going to show you this. It's important that you see this. This is from Central America. It was sent to me. Just so you can understand what screwworm does if it's unattended. That's why you have to make sure you have eyes on cattle. These cattle are in jungle. They're not seen all the time. So there's only one cure for that animal. That's lead. You tell me how we can take care of that animal. So, that's pretty much it. We're going to be going over to my place. That wrapped up. Meet your schedule? Good? All right. Thank you much. Appreciate your time.
We have one more proposal. I think that Mayor Juarez wanted to talk about a couple things.
Gracias a todos nuevamente, muchas gracias. Creo que las presentaciones han sido muy claras de lo que ha representado el cierre de estos cruces de ganado y que aquí nos demuestra nuevamente de que probablemente no es solamente un becerro, ¿no? Sino que representa la economía de ambos países en cantidades pues sumamente sorprendentes lo que estamos viendo. Yo creo que en la medida en que podamos ir entendiendo, por un lado, que se puedan ir haciendo los protocolos que vienen presentados por aquí, Steve Miller, que agradecemos muchísimo esta aportación, y también quien pudo hacer la presentación más adelante. Pero sí creo que podemos hacer desde Ciudad Juárez una serie de propuestas que pudieran ayudar en el camino a tratar de reactivar esta dinámica comercial que se ha perdido. Primero, yo creo que tenemos que entender a Chihuahua como un aliado estratégico de Estados Unidos, principalmente en lo que tiene que ver con Texas, Nuevo México y Chihuahua. Si lo vemos como este aliado estratégico en el que podemos hacer un factor diferenciador de otras ciudades o estados del país, creo que pudiéramos entender más rápidamente cómo pudiéramos hacer. Entendemos con claridad que el interés de Chihuahua coincide con el de la ganadería estadounidense. ¿Qué quiero decir con esto? Mantener una ganadería sana, competitiva y por supuesto confiable para todos. Las propuestas que nos gustaría hacer es primero crear una alianza ganadera de Chihuahua, Texas y Nuevo México con una plataforma de cooperación que tenga como base fundamental o pilares fundamentales la sanidad, la genética, la tecnología, el comercio, la innovación, la trazabilidad, la confianza y la cooperación. Entendiendo esta parte como objetivo sea convertir la región en una zona ganadera más competitiva o la más competitiva de Norteamérica. Para eso nos gustaría en primera instancia, aparte de crear esta alianza ganadera que nos permite los siguientes pasos, poder pedir en esta oportunidad que el estado de Chihuahua sea evaluado técnicamente por sus propias condiciones. Es decir, que no se evalúe con las políticas nacionales o las situaciones que se presentan a miles de kilómetros de nuestra entidad federativa. Esto nos ayudaría mucho para poder diferenciar. Ahorita veíamos en alguna de las láminas que nos presentaron cómo en el estado de Chihuahua todavía no está esta marcada rojo, ¿no? Que se veía esta situación tan compleja. Entonces ese es un factor que nos permita tener esta oportunidad para no nada más quedarnos en los 6 meses probables y toda la información que nos da. ¿Qué quiere decir esto? Para poder tener esto obviamente tiene que tener protocolos y proponemos que sea una zona exportadora controlada. ¿Qué quiere decir? Sería algunos puntos. Ranchos registrados y georreferenciados, ganado nacido o mantenido durante un periodo mínimo dentro de una zona específica, la prohibición de ingreso de animales procedentes de regiones de alto riesgo según la clasificación de la USDA aquí en Estados Unidos, identificación electrónica individual, la revisión veterinaria antes de salir de los ranchos que se pretenden, el transporte sellado por rutas autorizadas, la certificación de ausencia de heridas o signos compatibles con estas heridas, seguimiento durante un periodo posterior al cruce, que era parte de las propuestas que se hacían aquí para poder entender, la suspensión inmediata si focalizada si aparece una irregularidad. ¿Cómo podríamos hacer esto? Con la siguiente propuesta que estamos proponiendo, que sean corredores sanitarios certificados. ¿Esto qué quiere decir? Se propone que este sea un esquema de movilización basado en la trazabilidad, la inspección y el control que permita ofrecer mayores garantías sanitarias tanto a México como a Estados Unidos. De esta manera, pues esta ruta nos permite tener un control desde el rancho de origen hasta el punto de ingreso que se pueda tener aquí en los Estados Unidos. Tenemos varias otras propuestas que a reserva de que las podamos hacer de manera formal a través de un escrito que nos permitiera por aquí el comisionado y todos los que estamos realizando este punto para poder generar una reactivación lo más pronto posible en la economía de ambos países y sobre todo pues, tratando de cambiar estos números, ¿no? Obviamente combatiendo lo más importante que es el tema del gusano barrenador, pero pueden ir a la par caminando de manera paulatina. Muchas gracias.
Can I just mention a small comment on what the mayor just mentioned? And since we have here leadership from El Paso County, and some other, so Juarez, El Paso, Las Cruces, it's the biggest metropolitan area closest to where the screwworm is. And we know this just doesn't just attack wild animals and cattle. Juarez has a big problem with feral dogs. And screwworm against Juarez could become a big problem. I think that's where local leadership can start taking steps into how to put a stop into that, especially Juarez, El Paso County, because helping that or tackling that issue will also help the cattle industry both in Texas, New Mexico, and also in Chihuahua. Also taking care of our animals and our pets. And I think that will be very important because there's small farms, but they don't, or people that have their cats, their dogs, and they don't know about the new world screwworm, and they won't know how to treat it, and that becomes a bigger issue even for the cattlemen that are investing all this money trying to combat the new world screwworm. And I think that's important, having also the local leadership here, so we can also collaborate with the ag departments, the Latin Mexico Livestock Board, the Texas Animal Health Commission, and with the state of Chihuahua, and also with the federal partners. I think that's what also this is about, and how we can collaborate between all of us.
Sí, siendo un poquito breve y escuchando todas las propuestas, todas las proposiciones que han hecho aquí, las demostraciones, yo nada más quiero comentarles algo. Nosotros representamos la Unión Ganadera Regional de Chihuahua y yo personalmente aquí con Juan Castillo, Florencio, desde que llegó este problema que nos cerraron la primera vez la frontera, hemos estado encargados de cumplir todos los protocolos del gobierno federal justa en las fronteras que han sido bastante configurados, y nosotros como principales interesados como Unión Ganadera los hemos cumplido uno por uno, paso a paso, invirtiendo recursos de la misma unión, ¿verdad? Y los hemos ido llevando, un día es un requerimiento, un día es otro, y otro día es otro, y ahorita estamos donde estamos increíblemente, ya casi pasamos 2 años que tenemos las fronteras cerradas. El primer protocolo en el que se trabajó, que nos tocó estarlo trabajando de la mano con el gobierno, con el USDA de Estados Unidos, venían una serie de puntos ahí, y uno de ellos era que inclusive con el gusano existiendo ya en el estado de Chihuahua, se podía trabajar sobre cierto nivel de perjuicio. O sea, la frontera supuestamente iba a permanecer abierta, inclusive con el gusano. Soy el correcto, exportando con gusano siempre y cuando nosotros siguiéramos todos los protocolos que nos estaban poniendo, cosa que se hizo. Lo que estaba mencionando usted ahorita, el estado de Chihuahua, vamos hablando ahorita del estado de Chihuahua porque es lo que nos concierne a nosotros, gozamos de una sanidad excelente, somos pioneros en el país, Chihuahua, Sonora, de la sanidad con la que hemos trabajado, no nomás ahorita en el tema del gusano barrenador, en general, por eso somos el primer estado exportador del país. Ahorita yo les agradezco mucho, ¿verdad?, que estemos tomando en cuenta, que estemos poniendo estas reuniones, pero yo también sí quisiera ver la manera de que aquí los interesados, las personas que sensibilicemos un poco al gobierno federal de Estados Unidos, porque yo no veo aquí alguien de gusto dándonos alguna opinión o dándonos algún tema de cómo estamos ahorita con ellos, ¿verdad? Yo no veo a nadie, o sea, estamos nosotros, más bien que nada los interesados, pero al último del camino, el que tiene la llave para abrir esta puerta, son los últimos que tienen son los dueños de la llave, son los dueños del candado, ¿sí? Y yo creo que sí se tiene que sacar algo de aquí más a fondo, de que se forme alguna comisión, que sigamos tocando puertas, nosotros como Unión Ganadera, inclusive ahorita nuestro presidente anda en Washington tocándole la puerta a la Secretaría de Agricultura, ¿sí?, que lo iba a recibir. Nosotros no hemos dejado de estar, tenemos un departamento de lobbying en Washington, nosotros como Unión Ganadera no hemos dejado de trabajar allá. Entonces yo sí quiero ser muy objetivo en eso, que necesitamos ya saber ahora sí, estamos viendo esto, lo que está afectando, estoy hablando aquí con Unión Plus, del problema que se le representa, como dice Gerardo, no nada más a la ganadería, ya es el municipio en general, ya son los perros, son los gatos, son los patos de las casas, es todo. Ya para cerrar nada más, USDA, necesitamos a USDA en estas mesas de trabajo, necesitamos organizar mesas de trabajo con ellos, ese es mi punto de vista.
Si me permite, we talk about history repeats itself because we'll learn from it. I can't begin to tell you the similarity of what happened during COVID. The strategy, what we learned. One of the things that were very advantageous is that it took us about a year to have this kind of people sitting at the table. It took us about a year. So we're doing something that we scrambled that was so difficult for us. But there's so many things in the strategies, the containment. I'm sitting here, it's almost surreal how close the strategy is, and sort of you tipped us off when you said about the local and getting together. But we know what the importance of the media. We know the importance of not scaring but informing, the ability to contain. We were attacking the general population when older people and younger people were dying. And so right now you guys discuss, well, where is the problem? And we need to go towards that problem. Where is it that we have the major impact? And so we learned tremendously. So there's a lot of people sitting here that went through the COVID and the pandemic, and most of you know we're at the forefront of a pretty difficult situation. And it behooves us to sit back and talk to people who really understood and how quickly we made a lot of mistakes. And boy, I would feel very bad that what I went through and the mistakes that we made and the people that died because we didn't know better, that if we don't sort of learn from that and sit down with some of the people that went through that strategic planning to make sure that we address it properly. There's a lot of expertise in the community, both from both sides, that we have that history. And so I encourage that and we do sort of look back and find out what are some of the things that worked. The media was incredible, but at first the media was the worst enemy. And as you said, you know, there was a scare out there, and then we started working together with the media, then we became very effective in our communication. So there's a lot of similarity that I hope that we step back and sort of look at it, because we learned quite a bit, and I think we could save a lot of life or animals in this case, the way we learned to save lives back in the COVID when we went through the ordeal. So just encouraging that there is some strategic things out there that might be very helpful for what we're doing today.
We will continue with the Secretary intervention, and then we will circle back to the council.
Okay. Great conversation so far. Just wanted to throw in a little bit, kind of a description of how the response effort has played out in New Mexico. Once we found out that we were playing the same games as they are over in Texas, and did have a confirmed positive in the state. And I think to kind of along the lines of what you were talking about, the importance of having the people at the table before something strikes is. In New Mexico, the Department of Agriculture is responsible for Emergency Support Function 11, which is the response and preparedness efforts for any events or incidents that can impact ag and natural resources. For decades, it's been stressed within the Department of Ag, the Livestock Board, NMSU, the Cooperative Extension Service, and all of our other partner agencies to get people trained up in that and perform some preparedness exercises and get ready for things. So, specific to New World Screwworm, over a year ago when this started moving north, we started convening folks, including Livestock Board, Department of Ag, Department of Wildlife, Department of Health, Cooperative Extension Service, and our industry partners on a monthly basis to start talking about Screwworm on its way. We're probably going to get it at some point. What are we going to do? So that, I think that background sets the framework for what has happened when it got here. When we received the call on a Sunday that there was a confirmed positive case in southeastern New Mexico, by that evening there were phone calls going on from the get-go. By that evening we had local Cooperative Extension Service that went to the premises and was gathering information. Livestock Board agents were on site, and we had representatives from every agency on the phone at 2 o'clock that night trying to figure out essentially what we've got on the ground, and we already had a response plan in place. You mentioned the importance of local municipalities, and that was hugely important. We have the Lee County Office of Emergency Management was involved in all of those. Town officials were involved there, and so the response came together very quickly with developing the containment, the outreach was extremely important. They stood up a website, ScrewwormNewMexico.org, I believe is the site that has information from all of these agencies. We call it one place so that folks can go on there and gather the information. We have our state entomologist that's under NMPA, our veterinary diagnostic lab is part of the NOLAN network, the National Animal Health Lab Network. And because of that, she's been able to go through the proficiency testing and get certified to do screwworm identification, and that's a very difficult thing to go through. But we need more people. At that time, there's only 4 non-USDA folks in the country that have gone through that certification process. But so through that, we've in the preparedness efforts, we've gotten over 2,000 sampling kits out to extension offices and other entities throughout the state, so with instructions on how to submit so that folks can take samples and send them in. We can collect those in our lab. The actual on-the-ground effort, I'll turn it over to Director Garland to talk about that. The New Mexico Livestock Board is, while we're kind of over the coordination and herding the cats, if you will, the Livestock Board is the authority when it comes to the response for containment and control of livestock movements and things like that. I'll let Belinda talk some about what her team has done on the ground and go from there.
Thank you, Russ. So, thank you all for coming to this meeting. I think this collaboration is really important amongst all of us. I will tell you that the New Mexico Livestock Board houses the New Mexico State Veterinarian, Dr. Samantha Pollock. She actually leads us in these responses. She's the one that works actually I should say in cooperation with USDA. We created a response plan with NMDA and all the other departments in the state that were involved in this. And so she actually established our infested zone. So from that point of infestation and 12 miles out on a round radius, then we have what we call an infested zone. So our team patrols that infested zone. We do not allow any movement of livestock out of that without a hands-on inspection. So we went to many facilities that was located close to the infested zone, and we looked at those animals just to ensure that they were not infested in any way. So, and we have to maintain that radius and then another 12 miles out from there for 91 days. So we have officers down there patrolling 24 hours. Sometimes we don't get through the night, but we are trying to protect our livestock, that nothing moves out of there without a proper inspection and a proper certificate for movement. Basically, I think the most important thing I want to say is the state of New Mexico really pulled together under NMDA and the emergency response that we are working with, that all the departments came together and we created this one website. So one agency doesn't have one bit of information and another has another. It's all in one spot for anybody who wants to go find it. And I'm finding it's very effective. So I hope that we don't have any more, but we're not we're not that optimistic. We believe another one will happen, but we think that Eunice was a good practice run from that. As mentioned, we learned from some mistakes, and we grew off of that. We've made some corrections, and I think that I hope we're prepared as we can be for the next one.
Sí, gracias. Yo simplemente quería tocar un poco algunos comentarios empezando con Luis Samaniego. Me parece, y lo hemos dicho en muchas ocasiones, esta región, estos tres estados aquí a nivel local tienen una colaboración impresionante. Entonces creo que a nivel local se pueden solucionar muchas problemáticas que estamos enfrentando. Este problema es un tema desgraciadamente nacional, ¿no?, entre México y en Estados Unidos. Entonces a mí me parece que todas las ideas que se presentaron en el día de hoy aquí son muy importantes, me parece que son muy viables y creo que pueden complementar, van a complementar lo que está haciendo el gobierno de México y el gobierno de Estados Unidos conjuntamente, ¿no? Ya hablamos de las fábricas que acaban de iniciar, que esperamos que ahorita ya estén produciendo 26 millones de moscas a la semana y se espera que al final del año sean 100 millones a la semana. Entonces yo creo que todo eso se puede complementar. Que esté Texas ahorita, Nuevo México, Chihuahua aquí reunidos, además de las ciudades competentes, es importantísimo. Pero aquí sí retomo lo que dijo el señor Varela, porque al final de cuentas el cruce de personas y de animales en la frontera es responsabilidad federal. Entonces necesitamos tener representantes, no nomás de USDA, pero también de Senacica, porque al final de cuentas son los que están hablando constantemente. Entonces, este tipo de esfuerzos y este tipo de comentarios y de mejores experiencias, sí las tenemos que subir al nivel federal, porque al final de cuentas son los que van a determinar cuándo se abre o no se abre la frontera para este trabajo. Entonces, sí reiterarles a todos, importantísimo el trabajo que se hace en estas mesas. De hecho, le agradezco aquí al alcalde Ciudad Juárez, al New Mexico Border Authority, al secretario de Nuevo México, esta reunión, pero sí debemos de incluir a las dependencias competentes a nivel federal para que desde abajo empiece a subir, porque si no nos vamos a quedar atorados en algún momento y lo que tenemos que hacer es aplicar lo que se discutió ahorita a la brevedad posible para poder tener una acción inmediata. Gracias.
Si me permiten, antes que nada, Me gustó cómo inició la reunión, con un silbido, creo que en términos rancheros nos vamos a entender muy bien. Agradezco al alcalde con licencia Cruz Pérez Cuellar la invitación que hizo a mi persona y considero que esta reunión es muy importante, ya que de aquí debe salir la construcción de un discurso que, si bien es cierto, la apertura de la puerta compete a las instancias federales, nosotros como estados afectados e involucrados de manera muy responsable, porque voy a mencionar aquí que Chihuahua quiere ser causa de solución al problema que ambos países ya estamos enfrentando. Entonces, la idea es vernos como aliados en aras de construir ese discurso que sensibilice a las autoridades federales de ambos países para la reapertura de la frontera. El inventario ganadero de Estados Unidos es bajo, las cifras lo dicen, y el inventario ganadero de la franja fronteriza en México está al borde del barranco, está por colapsarse. Los precios que el mercado nacional ofrece por nuestros becerros que están criados para satisfacer los estándares de certificaciones de calidad que demanda Estados Unidos no son para el mercado que tenemos en México. La naturaleza del mercado de Chihuahua es la exportación para el consumo de los consumidores americanos. Entonces necesitamos construir ese discurso, todos los estados fronterizos, tanto de Estados Unidos como de México, para que la frontera se reaperture. Cabe mencionar que el 60% del valor de cada becerro que se exporta de México a Estados Unidos se queda en Estados Unidos. Entonces, es una derrama económica importante para ambos países y los productores de Chihuahua necesitamos de esos recursos para enfrentar la situación que ya nos llegó. Es cuanto, muchas gracias.
Nelson, pasamos a la media para Miriam por Q&A. Sí, está bien. A los compañeros de medio, si quieren pasar si tienen alguna pregunta, pueden pasar aquí al centro y hacer preguntas. Las pueden hacer en inglés o en español. You can make it in English or Spanish. You have
I got it. Let it go. Pero cómo
Gracias a todos por acompañarnos. Thanks for being here. If you have any questions, start.
I guess I'll start with here. Good morning, everyone. Commissioner, I guess this question is for you. This week, the Chihuahua State government announced the first case of the New World Screwworm just south of Ciudad Juarez, about 6 hours out of the city, in Parral, Chihuahua. What are the concerns and the steps, besides of course the roundtable that you guys had this morning, that you guys want to take to prevent that screwworm from coming over to this area of the Santa Teresa, Las Cruces, El Paso, Ciudad Juarez border region? What are the steps that you guys trying to do to prevent that from coming over here?
Well, I think the reasonable thing to do would be when we have a new outbreak in an area that has not had one previously. That means we're not releasing sterile flies there. So the first thing to do would be come in and release the fly bait. the SWA system, so it wouldn't be in danger of killing the sterile flies. So we come in, we do that for probably 30 to 45 days. The livestock was 14 to 21 days. If we have no reinfections, we clean that county up, or that section of the country up. We should be deploying the SWA system, the fly bait first, and then following up with the sterile flies. So that would be my recommendation, and I think it would work. You know, it's a 1-2 punch. You know, you use both, and that would be my recommendation.
You guys were talking, each and every one of you, about the importance of this collaboration. Of course, you guys are suggesting to bring the federal government from both sides to come here to the table and also discuss those issues with you guys, with the people and the main leaders here in the border area. But also, how do you feel about what has been discussed this morning with all these people around you? Also, if Mr. Fierro wants to discuss about this, the importance of this meeting today, Commissioner.
Well, I think it's been very productive. I think everyone here learned something. I know I did. One thing about the fly bait we didn't discuss, it is very cheap compared to producing, 500 million flies a week. That takes $1 billion facility. The fly bait is pellets, and it's 2 pounds per square mile. So it's pennies for the treatment compared to producing, 500 million flies a week. So we can spend a few million on the fly bait or billions on the sterile flies. So economic, not only does it make sense on eradication, but it makes more sense economically.
And then from my side, it's obviously we learned multiple things from people here today. There's 2 issues. One is the reopening of the border that obviously has to be dealt between both federal governments, but also dealing with the flies at the local level, and that's the other part, right? It's like how here in El Paso, Juarez, Las Cruces, New Mexico, start advancing towards, for example, that case that now Chihuahua has on southern Chihuahua and southern part of the state is, well, having local leadership be preparing towards those efforts. And obviously, for the reopening of the border, for the cattle crossing, it has to be between USDA, Senacica, and the federal governments, and then how the states, the ag departments, the livestock boards can also help meet those requirements, those protocols, so that cattle from Mexico crosses into the U.S.
¿Podría contestar esa en español?
Sí. Bueno, parte de los 2 temas que tenemos son diferentes, ¿verdad? Es la reapertura del cruce de ganado que compete al gobierno federal mexicano y americano. Ellos están trabajando para poder llegar a ese momento, pero también está el tema local, municipios, estados, ciudades, trabajando para combatir lo que es la mosca en cada uno de esos lugares. Ciudad Juárez, por ejemplo, como lo dije ahorita, tiene un problema con perros callejeros, ¿verdad? Entonces, de esos terrenos los va a checar qué vamos a hacer, o qué puede hacer Ciudad Juárez, cómo lo podemos apoyar, cómo le puede dar mejores prácticas el Departamento de Agricultura de Texas o de Nuevo México para combatir lo que se viene, y que se prepare la Ciudad del Paso, que se prepare el Condado del Paso. Ciudad Juárez y El Paso es la ciudad metropolitana más grande, cerca de donde está la mosca ahorita, que ya está en Parral, y hacia el lado de Tamaulipas. ¿Qué vamos a hacer? Porque eso, Senacica y USDA pueden resolver y poner los protocolos, pero si se hace una infestación grande, pues entonces es donde entran las autoridades locales a reforzar los esfuerzos que está haciendo el gobierno federal, es donde entra el gobierno municipal y estatal a apoyar, a combatir la mosca. Ya lo que es la política internacional para el comercio, pues lo va a ver el gobierno federal, que sí están trabajando. Lo comentó el señor Varela, ellos como organismo de la Unión Ganadera han estado trabajando arduamente en Washington en reuniones con la Casa Blanca, con la secretaria Rollins, y es parte de lo que se está haciendo. Entonces creo que estamos a tiempo. Se presentó el primer caso de Chihuahua esta semana y creo que estamos a tiempo de que en lo local se pueda empezar a tomar medidas.
Ahorita se escucharon muchas propuestas por parte de todas las entidades. ¿Cuál sería a lo mejor, como sintetizando, qué es lo que se llevan, cuáles son los siguientes pasos, pero también a lo mejor habría una junta con USDA, como bien lo pedía la Unión Ganadera, a lo mejor para ya colaborar con ellos?
Sí, por ejemplo, en el estado de Nuevo México, para la región, tenemos a la de USDA, tenemos a la doctora Tammy Howard, y ella, por ejemplo, en Columbus ya han puesto algunas trampas para estar monitoreando. Falta esa coordinación para tener más trampas en la región. Sí hay coordinación con USDA. Muchas de estas reuniones no quieren venir porque como es un tema que compete a nivel federal, pues lo ven ellos directo con los homólogos en México, pero sí hay coordinación. Aquí en la oficina nosotros el Board Authority les prestamos oficinas, ellos vienen aquí, de aquí salen a sus rutas de campo, entonces sí hay esa coordinación con el Estado de Nuevo México y USDA en general, con la Unión Ganadera también, aquí en los corrales de exportación y del lado mexicano, cuando estaba operando el ganado, están ahí. Entonces sí hay esa coordinación en el ámbito local. Lo que ya es la política a nivel federal es lo que compete a los altos niveles federales.
I'd also like to ask both mayors, Mayor Johnson, Alcalde Ortiz, whoever wants to ask this one first, but after today's meeting, what are both cities, and in this case, el municipio de Juárez, will try to comply with what has been discussed with Texas and New Mexico officials as well? What is the city of El Paso set to do now after today's meeting, based on the concerns that the community has over the screwworm? Y pues el municipio de Juárez, ¿qué planea hacer también, alcalde, por favor?
So we know the impact that this has had on the border region. It has completely crippled our cattle industry in this region. As mentioned earlier, the screwworm doesn't know borders. So we are in a education listening mode today, especially the city of El Paso, but we have to make sure that we are in communication with our partners in Juárez and as well as the county to make sure that we are prepared, as the judge said earlier, and have a strategy in place to handle this when it does continue to move north, and hopefully it doesn't continue to do that. But I think what I learned today was listening to the commissioner, where there is some solutions out there that we can start implementing and looking at doing, and he's had some solutions and he presented those earlier. So I think we need to look at the solutions, but also as a municipality and as a community, that we are prepared and we are looking and working with our partners in Mexico as well as the county to make sure that this doesn't jump to El Paso and doesn't jump into the county and cause us more problems, because again, it has crippled our cattle industry right here in the region, and we need to get our borders back open. We need to get the cattle industry back to work, because the numbers that were presented today were zero. And I think the commissioner has some proposals on the way that with the USDA and the federal government that can get the border open. Alcalde.
Sí, gracias. Muchas gracias, alcalde. Pues en el caso de nosotros es tan importante esta relación que somos convocantes en esta reunión, precisamente para prevenirnos. Lo que hemos hecho en las actividades del gobierno municipal es buscar la prevención antes de que llegue alguna situación que pudiera alarmarnos. Desde la presidencia del presidente Cruz Pérez Cuellar se inició con un tema que fue la Dirección de Bienestar Animal, que en el caso de nosotros tenemos que empezar a contener con los animales, porque sabemos de los problemas que hay con los perros callejeros, y que hemos estado muy atentos para erradicar el tema de la garrapata, la rickettsia, y hemos estado muy de cerca con autoridades también estadounidenses para evitar cualquier tipo de propagación de esta situación. DABA es una dirección que está trabajando ampliamente en las colonias donde tienen mayor problema, porque eso nos ayuda a prevenir. Pero más allá de eso, la comunicación que tenemos que tener, el poder generar las condiciones necesarias para que en el caso de que existiera alguna contingencia, tener las herramientas necesarias, y el diálogo que vamos generando entre ambos lados del país, creo que nos va a ayudar mucho a estar preparados para eso. Y obviamente también decir, se ha estado teniendo comunicación también por el lado del gobierno federal, a quienes agradecemos mucho siempre el apoyo, buscando precisamente el acercamiento, no solamente de que sea el gobierno federal con gobierno federal, sino que entiendan desde el punto de vista de cómo estamos viviendo aquí la situación en el caso de Juárez y por supuesto con las demás ciudades.
Alcalde, ¿cómo funcionaría el corredor sanitario?
Bueno, esta es una propuesta que estamos planteando en este momento aquí. Me parece que los protocolos pudieran darse en reuniones de seguimiento posterior para que realmente concretemos un espacio en el que podamos colaborar todos. ¿Por qué? Porque esto pues, no puede ser un invento, tiene que ser con gente muy especializada que conozca de los temas. La Unión Ganadera, por supuesto, que ya tiene mucho avance en este sentido y me parece que ojalá y que se tomara esta propuesta para efecto de que podamos avanzar a la par de lo que pueda estar haciendo los gobiernos federales.
Hablando de acercamiento, aquí tenemos a la ciudad del Paso, el condado con el estado de Texas, el gobierno del estado de Nuevo México también, el acercamiento con los gobiernos federales, pero también cómo planea el municipio de Ciudad Juárez acercarse al gobierno del estado de Chihuahua y que también ustedes tengan ese apoyo por parte de autoridades estatales, sobre todo porque ya hablábamos del caso en Parral, ya está en el estado, pero cómo se van a acercar ustedes con el gobierno del estado de Chihuahua para también tener ese apoyo estatal como está acá en Estados Unidos.
Miren, institucionalmente el gobierno municipal de Juárez siempre tiende la mano para poder coordinarnos. En el tema de seguridad siempre estamos muy coordinados. En aspectos de salud, debo decirlo, nosotros ejecutamos varios de los programas que se requieren para el tema de la riqueza, que es al final de cuentas una responsabilidad estatal el tema sanitario. No obstante, nosotros siempre estamos dispuestos a la colaboración. Entonces, la manera en que lo vamos a seguir haciendo es abriendo el espacio de diálogo, colaborar y, por supuesto, nosotros ejercer la parte competencial que nos corresponde, ¿no?
Haciendo nada más un poco de contexto, en estos 2 años que te cierre la frontera, ¿qué afectaciones económicas se han tenido?
Sí, mira, son cálculos porque no se puede decir, saber cuánto ganó y va a cruzar, pero ahorita lo estaba mencionando Daniel, puede ir desde el 1.5 hasta 2.5 billones de dólares en lo que es el comercio local, lo que se importaba de ganado, lo que se, con caballos y todo, más o menos desde que cerró la frontera hasta ahorita. Pero directamente, por ejemplo, para el Estado de Nuevo México se habla hasta de unos 50 millones de dólares, hablando en lo que se pagaba de fletes del ganado de aquí de Santa Teresa, de Columbus, hacia la zona del Panhandle de Texas, que es Amarillo, Hereford, toda esa área, todas esas millas, el impuesto sobre el diésel, empleos en la Unión Ganadera, en los corrales, la pastura que se consumía. Nomás de tener cerrado la frontera.
Viendo las afectaciones y pues que ha pasado ya un año desde que está completamente cerrado, ahorita hablando todos, proponiendo cuánto tiempo más estiman de que esté cerrada, también viendo pues toda la afectación con el ganado.
La pregunta de los informes.
No, eso sí es algo que compete completamente, como dijo el señor Varela, a USDA, a USDA. Ellos tienen la llave. Creo que nosotros estamos aquí para abonar a las cosas, para trabajar de la mano y ayudar y cumplir con los protocolos que USDA imponga en su momento. No sabemos, ahorita hiciste la pregunta de acuerdos que se están haciendo y ya tenemos firmados. Le quisiera pasar la palabra al comisionado Miller para que nos explique de lo que estamos haciendo. So, Commissioner, if you want to guide us on what we signed there and what we are agreeing to commit to.
What we just signed is a founding charter for Binational Corporation. All of us in the room, we pledged to work together to solve this problem. So it's a U.S., it's Mexico border states, it's U.S. states. This is what we call the New World Screwworm Summit here in Santa Teresa. So we have a shared commitment. You can read the 10 pledges that we made and what we've committed to, and each and every one that signed that committed to each one of those 10 pledges. So today is not the ending, it's the start. And so we hope that we will move forward and we will conquer and initially and finally eradicate this pest.
Mi compañera aquí dice que si lo puede decir en inglés, nomás que no trae voz. Lo de cuánto tiempo estiman y pues que es de USDA.
Yes, no. For the reopening, and like Mr. Varela said, we don't know. They are lobbying, the Unión Ganadera is lobbying in Washington, D.C. It's something that Secretary Rawlings and the White House will have to decide on when to reopen the border. The truth is that it's not just locally that we're hurting. It's ranchers, feedlots, feed yards. Everyone is hurting from here throughout all the U.S. I mean, this is not just affecting the border. It's not just the cattle that crosses here. The cattle that crosses here ends up in Amarillo, ends up in California, ends up in Kansas, and all those feedlots and then all those meat packers are closing, and we're losing thousands and thousands of jobs in the U.S. because of this.
One of the things that the businesses here in El Paso and the local area are losing tremendously because the Mexican rancher, when he gets a check for $100,000 or $400,000, he leaves a big chunk of it here in El Paso. From hotels and restaurants and ranch supplies and trucks and whatnot, they bring the whole family. That's a lot of the businesses here are suffering.
In the United States, we have closed 8 packing plants, either completely or partially. There have been 8 that are completely shut down.
And we have, for example, here in Santa Teresa, El Paso, there's a big impact on talking about money. But then you have Columbus and Palomas, that was their most traded commodity on that port of entry. It's a small town. You shut down that. You can speak to the mayor. We have the mayor here from Columbus, and all the cattle that was crossing through there was probably the most traded commodity in Columbus and Palomas, and now they're losing. Their impact is bigger on the community. And you can talk to the Presidente Municipal de Ascensión and the mayor of Columbus as well.
Executive Director, you were just talking about, of course, the impacts that we're seeing economically because there's no cattle crossing over, right? But just for people to keep that in mind and to see the measure and to measure the impact that we could see, let's hope not, right? But if we see a case of a screwworm here in our area and it impacts and affects the cattle, how many millions can be lost here just in this area where we're at right now?
Well, taking a toll of that will be complicated, but I think I'll leave that question to Commissioner Miller, seeing what has been happening in Laredo and McAllen and all those counties.
Well, the numbers are just way down. They're probably not ever going to get back to the numbers they were. We don't have the grazing land we once had. The fact is that a lot of our ranches are being taken out and made into wildlife ranches. They're turned into solar farms, data centers, housing units, airports. So I don't see our numbers ever. We just don't have a place to put them because our urban expansion is just eating up our grasslands and our farmland. It's sad, but once we pave over that land, we're never going to farm it again, and that's the sad truth.
How dangerous is the screwworm to our pets? Whoever wants to find it.
Well, I think it's. I don't know if you heard me earlier, but the number one mammals. There's over 200 mammals in Texas and New Mexico. It affects all of them, including human beings. The number one affected is bovine, which is cattle. The number 2 is canine, which is dogs. Dogs. So you think it's just a livestock problem? It's a farmer and rancher problem? No. Nearly every American and Mexican family has a pet, so it could affect any and everybody's family. And so it's out there. We have a huge wildlife industry in Texas. We have over 5 million deer. We have 1 million of them under high fence. We have a lot of exotic game that are exposed to this. In Mexico and Central America, in the last 12 months, there's been over 2,000 cases of human infections. Human infections. We didn't think about that. 2 deaths. 2 people have died from screwworm infestation. So there's no one that's totally immune. The screwworm on humans, watery eyes at night when you're sleeping, they can lay their eggs, nasal discharge, the limb in your ear canal. This is like something out of a horror movie. I mean, this is a terrible. I mean, it can be if it's not dealt with immediately, it can be deadly actually.
Si no se le pone atención, sí se puede complicar. peligroso en sí no es, pero se puede tratar con medicamentos sencillos que puedes conseguir, pero obviamente cuando tienes un problema donde hay animales que nadie lo está revisando, se convierte en un problema muy grande y áreas de infestación.
Commissioner, what should ranchers, veterinarians, and even pet owners in West Texas be doing right now to help detect or prevent the spread of the New World Worm?
Well, we have some tools today that we did not have in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. We have anti-parasitic drugs like ivermectin and Dectomax and some others that you can treat and have some preventative measures. It's not a vaccine, but you can give your animals these 2 drugs and it'll prevent them from getting them. We have compounding the problem today is people are much more mobile than they were 50 years ago. There's more roads, more highways, there's more cars. When I go to my barn in Stephenville, Texas, and I forget to leave the windows down, my pickup is full of flies. I try to shoosh them all out, but I never get them all out of there. And I roll up the windows and I drive 160 miles to Austin and open the door and there goes 6 flies. I've just transported them 160 miles. So that's the problem. It's not that the fly can move 15 miles a day. It's that they can come in on cruise ships. They go down in the Caribbean and the Yucatan Peninsula. They can come in on trains. They can come on tourist cars back and forth. We don't quarantine pets. Pests that come from the been in Mexico and come back, they could be infected. We wouldn't know it. We don't check them. So there's some protocols that are too tight, like cattle imports. There's some protocols that aren't tight enough, like pets should be examined and get a health certificate before they go in or come back, really.
Ms. Garland wanted to add something to this.
Yes, thank you. I just want to add the message that we've been sending out to the public: be alert, but don't be alarmed. I mean, this is treatable. It's early detection, early treatment. It can be solved. The dog in Eunice went back home. They treated her, they quarantined her, they held her for a while, and it went back home. So it is treatable. You know, not every case dies. It is important that we eradicate this fly, yes, but we don't want to panic the public. You know, just be aware, watch your animals. If they're showing any sign of distress, then you need to pay attention to it. Because just remember, these larvae are not on the surface, they burrow in. That way, they're not easy to see, and when they burrow in. So I think it's important that you really pay attention to your livestock and to your pets.
I would encourage anyone that suspects they might have a screwworm to report it. Local veterinarian, animal health department, USDA, agriculture department. We'll get those samples, we'll send them off and either confirm or figure out what it is or not. We need to do that. We need to be aware so we can come in with the fly bait or the sterile flies. But if we don't know where it is, we can't treat it. So reporting is very important.
Thank you.
Thank y'all very much. God bless you. Thank you.
Ahora vamos a pasar acá afuera a tomarnos la foto.
Yeah, we're going to get a picture. I think we're going to do it outside. There's my room out there. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.